Route B. What?
Can I briefly speak to the first resolution? Helen?
Okay.
I think we didn't put it into the resolution. I'm not sure whether the audience has actually seen this, but I think there are very fundamental flaws that are so manifest that any kind of decision that is based on this consultation is going to carry through that kind of mistake. And we have clear guidelines, not just for statutory consultations, but for all public consultations and civic engagement structures in this region, in the county council and in the city council. I think what was clear from the officer's answer is that they've never looked at the city council guidelines, they've completely ignored that part of their remit. I think they need to be reminded that there are actually guidelines, public guidelines that they are public servants, civil servants should actually observe. And they haven't, right? So I think the sort of plaster type with sticky tape amending crucial information on one road. I'm not sure whether anyone has seen the sort of nice little stickers that they've put on the leaflets, not the ones they've distributed to all the households, but only the ones that they were handing out. That's not a way to run a consultation procedurally. So I would encourage the chairs to make it really, really clear that this type of procedure is criticizable and potentially carries the risk of manifest error moving forward in the planning process. So underline that this needs to be paused and really corrected before we can go forward.
Well, that's going to be in the letter, isn't it?
Exactly.
So the treatment of Route B is the second resolution. I don't think this is particularly controversial given my conversations with members along the way. So we are objecting to the cost issues. Next page, the treatment of Route B. The statement that the bridge needs to be widened, even though their own Rectory Bridge report told them it didn't need to be widened, and that no work whatsoever has been done east of High Cross. Because what we've asked for all along is something similar to what Milton and Histon Road have, that kind of relationship with officers, and we could have worked something out. But nothing has happened, and it was never the intention just to stop dead and be in the traffic jam, having whizzed down a central bus lane. So these are our criticisms, but going to the final sentence, we don't now want to withdraw the consultation immediately. I think we've established that. So again, we want to work with officers and rectify the deficiencies.
Yeah.
Is that the resolution?
Or withdraw, pause.
Pause again.
The detail that's here obviously is in our first two resolutions, but isn't it? This is all covered, and this is the material stuff that would go in the cover letter.
Okay. So does it need to be a resolution at all?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, just only to the extent that if there's any things that people disagree with or would like added, that this is the chance to discuss. If anybody wants background to discuss any of the different points, now's the forum, rather than take it as read.
Well, could I just say on point two, going back to what Chris Wansell said about the need for gantries in a tidal scheme, isn't he just going to come back to you on that? Because he did mention about the physical segregation issue. Is that going to be problematic, having that alternative engineering approaches, sentencing?
I think part of the problem is that we've never discussed it. So it's fine for him to sit and say, I'm telling you, I can't have these buses on my road. That's not a discussion, and that's not a proper technical analysis. And at the moment, I think part of the issue is that we are constantly in a vacuum of information, being told by the consultants or by the officers, well, that's how it is, that's how it's going to be, not with any backup. So I've got an example. So I made quick 5-minute slides over my tea tonight. That's all the time I had. But this is an example of the issue. So this is actually relating to the bridge. Related to the bridge. So you all remember that there was a bridge study published last year by Atkins, which clearly showed that a bus lane could be accommodated on the M11 bridge without widening. And this is the drawing of it, 4 lanes, all 3 metres wide. We were then told, so the existing layout is 3 lanes, 3.65 metres, and a pavement on the north and south. And then the new layout, proposed by Atkins, not by us, was 4 3-metre lanes and a pavement on the north side. The officers then said, oh, well, reduced lanes may lead to more accidents. I think it even says that in the report, okay? This is what you might remember that the GCB used to be called the Greater Cambridge City Deal. This is the design guide produced by the City Deal for how streets should be laid out. And this is what they say for the desirable size of a running lane for traffic and a bus lane for each direction, 3 metres. This is their published guidance, 3 metres, and yet they say that having 3 metres across that bridge would result in accidents. I mean, this just does not make sense. It's just inconsistent. So we find it, certainly from the point of view of the technical group, we have found it incredibly difficult to discuss in a fair and objective way the issues of this scheme, because we are constantly having thrown in our path things that just do not make, they are not consistent and they don't make technical or engineering sense. So simply for Mr. Tunstall, notwithstanding his great experience, simply for him to say, I'm not having the title scheme without gantries, is just not acceptable. We need more. We need something from the Department for Transport. We need proper independent technical guidance on what would be required for a title scheme. If the consequence of all that is absolutely just will not fly, then fine. It's an inbound single lane. It's future-proof, because one day we will work out how to do a title scheme that does not require gantries or some other terrible, maybe it'll be the road surface that they put on the TV adverts at the moment, which tells you which way to go on it, because sometime there will be a technological advance, so we just have to wait. I am interested, though, very interested, that in that same design guide there is this photograph. And goodness me, it's a central bus lane, and it's somewhere in the UK, because these are British number plates.
Without gantry.
Without gantries, in the middle of the road. I've asked them already twice, where is this? Where is it? They've never replied. I would love to know. I've searched. If anybody recognises this street scene anywhere in the UK, I would love to know, because I want to go there.
Oxford is putting in place.
Yeah, this isn't Oxford. I don't know where it is. I want to live there, wherever it is.
It'll be Oxford. It'll be Oxford. It's photoshopped anyway.
Margaret.
I'm not a member of the technical group, but the gantries strike me as really weird. Maybe it's coming from continental Europe, where there are never any gantries for tidal routes. It was explained to me that a bus coming out of the university side might use the busway in the wrong direction. But if it's a dedicated busway that only official buses can use, it's not clear to me how that situation could ever occur. So maybe challenge the officers again on the gantries. They said to me, oh, in France and Belgium, they have completely different health and safety rules from the United Kingdom, and therefore it could never be approved here. But when I pushed them and asked them, where is it in the law? They said, it's not in the law. It's just technical guidance. I don't think the two commute. Okay? I think it needs to be challenged.
And there is no published technical guidance. I've searched every avenue of every design manual for roads and bridges, for web, everything. There is no published guidance. And the only thing they've done so far is to point us in the direction of car schemes, tidal car schemes, which obviously need gantry to
Trees,
help
absolutely.
drivers, because clearly you do need
Yeah.
to know if you're driving. But that's not the same. This is not
Exactly.
the same as a separated bus lane which cars are not allowed to go in.
Correct.
Maybe we need to talk to the friendly transport consultant again. Just ask him. Okay.
DFT.
Okay, so is everybody happy just to move on? We know what's wrong with option B. You're happy that we describe it? Okay. The next proposed resolution, in fact the next two I think are important for us to debate and vote on because we haven't before. And I know that the comment has been from GCP that there hasn't been very much pushback against the waterworks site, and they're surprised. And they are surprised about that, so it may be, so I think it would be a good idea if we debate this one and make a decision on it.
I am trying.
Shall I read it out while you're...
I'm typing everything. Is it this one?
Yeah. Tim, is there anything else you want to say on that?
There was, but it's slipped my mind, it might come back to me in a sec. But obviously, I find the two photos most bizarre, that one is from Coton and the other is from the direction of the footbridge. When the whole point of where I was getting grumpy, well, I'm always pretty grumpy, I'm a farmer, I can be grumpy, but the water tower was the fact you could see it from Essex and Hertfordshire borders. There's no comment, they're just saying about the near visual impact. Yeah, I've just lost the words for it. But yeah, basically, I stand by what's written there.
Yeah, and the big, the big statement there was that they'd listened and took Crome Leon off the table, but of course at the same time as putting the waterworks on the table, which is almost as bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, work. And the other thing that isn't in there, they've made, by their own words, they took on board the importance of Madingley Wood at Triple SI. And so they've just moved this about 2 fields over, so it's still really within the catchment of a Triple SI. And, that just doesn't feature in it. And while we're still on the comparison, I really do not understand where they say predicted usage lower than waterworks at 67.5%. I mean, if by their own admission they're looking to catch people coming from the west, so I'd have thought most people, if they're coming from the west, they would enjoy a shorter journey rather than a longer journey, and certainly not get stuck in all the congestion. It's just bonkers.
So, I think I'm caught on this one.
I went to the roadshow and I asked the question how cars were going to get into the Madingley Park and Ride, given that particularly since opening Reddington, the traffic is now backed up down the slip road at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I actually struggled to get out of the village because I had to wait for someone to let me out. And what they said was that if they had to, they would completely rebuild the roundabout and move it somewhere. And I said, what would that cost? And they said, that's a detail we haven't looked at. So our would have to be consulted on schemes where we don't know what they're going to cost. And it would cost millions to move the roundabout. The alternative they have is to actually feed cars up from the Scotland Road junction, up the old road, into a park and ride that way, in which case you might as well have to park and ride.
And I think the simple case we can make is that all the arguments that we put, which persuaded them to withdraw Crome Lee, apply to the waterworks. You know, it's just 2 fields away, and I think we can put it simply like that. I mean, it was when I said to the Assembly, in the Assembly meeting where they were discussing this, could any member honestly see them voting for Crome Lee, where, you know, when they finally realised that actually, no, they couldn't, and that was the point at which the Assembly agreed to ask for Crome Lee to be removed, because they realised that actually none of them could vote for it, so what was the point in, you know, continuing to discuss it? So I think we just say, you know, you got rid of Crome Lee because of arguments, and this is no different.
But actually they bring Hardwick into the equation with this one, don't they? Because, you know, presumably there's going to be backed up traffic along the old St Neots Road as well.
Just in relation to that, something I picked up on in the conversation that happened between Chris and Stuart in relation to what was going to happen with the current Madingley Park and Ride. That was a very worrying conversation for me, because I thought, hold on a minute, you know, is one being closed and giving the other a chance to actually succeed, or if the Madingley Park and Ride continues to stay open for 18 years, then you've got a dilemma, actually acknowledged by Chris during his conversation, where he felt that the Park and Ride may fail. I'm sure I heard him say that. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute. So I'm a little worried that I think we need to acknowledge something about the fact that the existing Park and Ride is staying open, and surely that will compromise the success of any other Park and Ride. Maybe I'm just missing something.
Put that on record.
Particularly very close.
Do you want to add that?
Tumi's just mentioned that she feels it needs to be kept open for M11 northbound traffic that comes off at junction 13.
That's why they wanted to Madingley, because they wanted to be able to feed cars at Madingley Rise and close the current Park and Ride. And you guarantee that as soon as the new one opens, it'll be brownfield gardens.
I just wonder whether some acknowledgement of it doesn't feel very strategic to me.
No.
Oh, another thing, Helen, that I believe it's not in their remit, but I've always thought the strength of the Scotland Farm Park and Ride is you could have buses going to the Science Park, whereas one at Madingley Mulch, then it's only going into Cambridge, not the Science Park.
Good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. Do we maybe do we maybe just want the first and last sentences of this with additional information on rat running, environmental impact, connectivity, access, all of those things? Or do you want to add those 2 points? That the LLF is concerned that with the existing Park and Ride being kept open, this may compromise the success of the new Park and Ride, particularly the waterworks, and it's not well connected. Or do we just want to say the first sentence and the last sentence, and we stick all of our reasons in a sentence?
Again, we need to bear in mind, we need to keep...
Let's do that. Okay, so let's do that. Yeah.
And then is this not just one more of the deficiencies of the consultation document, which therefore is annexed to the first resolution? And you can argue why we particularly focusing upon this one. There are so many deficiencies. It just should be listed as one of the deficiencies in the presentation in the consultation.
Yeah, I don't.
Therefore, it's covered under resolution 1.
Yes, I think the deficiencies in what's been said about it are covered in resolution 1, but we have never expressed a view on the waterworks site. And we do need to, because the feedback is that they're surprised.
On the site, it's expressing a view on the deficiencies of what's been presented in the consultation document. That's 2 different things.
So we might, so our resolution might actually start situated.
Another point, just the waterworks is as bad a choice, or is almost as bad as Crome Lee. I mean, it's not complicated. I mean, all we're saying is it's a lousy place, it's on high ground. It's a terrible choice. And I think we all feel that. Is there anyone here who likes the waterworks as a choice?
I don't think there's anybody who likes it. It's terrible, isn't it?
Well, their reaction was like a naughty boy. You can't have it there. Right, we can't have it on that.
Yeah, I think it's, we've got to say that very clearly, I think.
Yeah, okay.
At the exhibitions, the consultants have been continuously saying Scotland Farm cannot be afforded because the buses would cost too much to run for the extra 1.6 miles from Scotland Farm to Madingley Mulch. And they just keep repeating over and over again that it's a cost factor and it's a done deal. Now it's the only site viably left on the table.
Can I respond to that? I think that has come from Andy Campbell himself, who attended one of these focus workshops that we had. And he said that it was going to be more expensive to run Park and Ride at Scotland Farm. Were you at the same workshop?
Well, he changed his tune. The first workshop, he said, I will run buses wherever you want, as long as I can make money, I will run buses. And then Rod picked him up on the second one, that he changed his tune.
He did change his tune. I think we were on the same workshop where he said that it was going to cost a lot more to run the bus from Scotland Farm.
But he's just being commercial, isn't he? He's tactically telling when they do Scotland Farm, he's going to ask for more money. Now, whether they give him more money is a different matter. But he's just being very commercial.
Mark MacDonald has also said in a report that no bus from the existing Park and Ride could join an off-route option because it's just not possible to bring it down to through the West Cambridge side at the frequency that you need for a Park and Ride bus. So for the next 17 years, there will be buses down Medingley Road at the same time as they're pursuing the off-road option.
Gabriel, I think we could just be simpler, really, because we've made these arguments before with regard to Crome Lee, so we could just say the LLF does not support a Park and Ride at the Waterworks site for the same reasons it objected to a Park and Ride at Crome Lee. Because actually they accepted them, so actually we're saying to them, you've done it again. Plus, we are concerned about additional traffic through Hardwick. So we're giving them more reasons than we had for Crome Lee. How about that?
I think Alistair Brough was desperate to say something, would you?
Well, no, I was just going to point out that there is actually a City Deal document, February 2015, that identifies 3 sites around Madingley Mulch, the northeast, the northwest, and the water tower. And if you read that document, they actually come up with some very good arguments why it shouldn't be at the water tower.
That's not stopped them before.
Mm-hmm. Shall we vote on that? Everybody happy to vote on that? Okay.
It's not just Hardwick, it's Madingley as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coton.
Hardwick, Madingley.
Sorry about my time.
Okay. All in favour?
Can we just make certain we've got that last sentence right? Because the impact of Scotland Farm, the opposite Hardwick, will be just as substantial, if not greater, than will the one at the waterworks. So I'm a little worried about if you're starting to raise impact on the villages, you could be shooting yourself in the foot.
I think we mean traffic impact, don't we? Rat running. Because we made the points about environmental and light impact for Crome Lee, but it's got additional traffic.
But the roundabout will get completely clogged up with backing onto the motorway, onto the A428, because it's the convenience of the access of the A428 is far less than it is for Scotland Farm.
I'm Tony Gill, Chairman of Parliament Parish Council.
Could I say that one thing about discussing where the park and rides can go is that phase 2 is going to decide on the route from Scotland Farm or the park and ride site back towards Cambourne. So we're making decisions on something we don't know, because if, as has been talked about most of the time, that the traffic from Scotland Farm Park and Ride is going to follow 4 to 8, and the gentleman made a very good point that that could then link to the science park. If that is the case, that means that you're cutting a big chunk, i.e. Hardwick, which is going to have nearly 3,000 people, with the 2 new developments that are going there, and possibly Toft, Kingston, etc., who are not going to go back towards the park and ride site to then not be able to pick it up anywhere else in Hardwick. So we're trying to make decisions on the park and ride sites, not knowing until this time next year, possibly, where the link-up routes from that park and ride site are going to lead to join up with A, B or C there. So I think we've got to be mindful of, because what we've said all along is nothing's joined up. We're always looking at something that we don't know, we haven't got the information to make to answer the question.
So we're objecting to the waterworks site for the same reasons as we oppose the Cromley site. In addition, we feel that it's too soon to make a judgment, given we do not know the...
Do we need to say?
Do we need to say, yeah?
I think if we just said that first sentence, we agree on that. Let's keep it brief.
Let's keep it short, and then we'll put that in the notes. On the
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, I'll add that point to the notes that we make. Yeah. Don't know. Okay.
We just need to focus on making sure that the resolutions themselves are 2 sentences or 2 lines, 2, 3 lines, whatever.
Yeah.
Just keep it brief.
Okay, that's the first sentence.
It's the second sentence.
No,
because that's really not.
let's just say that.
People will start arguing then about impact on other villages. Yeah.
Because, you know, they said that they listened to our arguments and took Cromley off the table, so we're making the same ones. Okay. Let's vote on that. 18, okay.
I'm not feeling very well, I can't claim. Well, it's everybody, it's everybody. Unanimous.
We're not 18 anymore.
Oh, right, okay, it's lost what?
Yeah,
We've
people
lost
lost
15, okay, 15. Anybody against? Abstain. Okay. We're 3 minutes over, we're dealing with the last thing, so Stephen, this is your draft resolution.
Is there a microphone? I mean, you can all see the resolution, but it's about the point that was raised by Chris Bratton about what happens to buses post Range Road onto Silver Street. And it's hugely important for West Cambridge. And actually, I've done recently I've had meetings with one of the senior people in the university, and actually this is something which seems to bring universal concern from college masters and people like this. The fact that we are choosing a destination where it will come out onto Grange Road without actually figuring out the next step. The other problem I've got, and I'll say this on the record now, you can film me, okay? I got a brown envelope delivered to my house, and it contained a document which had within it a plan for a turning circle on Queen's Green and for bus lanes on the backs. Now, I know Francis Burke, etc., said that was in the past, but the trouble is, the document also said if you don't put those kinds of things in, is it going to work going through Silver Street? So the fact that they're not answering these questions, they're just sort of saying, we're not prepared to discuss it, I think is a big problem, because actually, in many respects, in terms of West Cambridge, it's the elephant in the room, the fact they won't discuss what happens. And I think what frustrates me is that we keep asking the question. It's a bit, if you're in a relationship, you keep saying to your wife, are you cheating on me? And she says, I'm not going to answer the question. You're going to stop asking the question.
Is that a bad sign?
Not once in my relationship. So I'll leave it there, but I think there's an important resolution. I think it's actually been watered down. I think it could be stronger. So there we are. It effectively just says we need clarification, in terms of what's going to happen post Grange Road.
Can I just say, I totally agree with what you said about this, but is this not something, in thinking about this in terms of the process of the LLF, your final paragraph is we've already voted on that we're asking them to go back and pause. Should not all the first part of this resolution be, if people agree with what you said, should this not be incorporated in the letter that Helen is going to draft on our behalf?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
I very strongly support this, and I think this is something which we can bring into what Chris Tunstall said about we need everything on the table. So I think what he meant was we need everything bad on the table that's sort of bad for people who don't like our scheme. But we should also say, well, we want everything on the table, yeah? We want to know what happens to the buses when they hit Grange Road. And I think, we just use your words against you. Yeah. This is something which really needs to be resolved before we can make a proper decision.
Yeah, because the point is, if they are truly thinking of using Silver Street, then the public have a right to know that, because a lot of us would be outraged by that. But if they're not, then what is the point of amending halfway down Grange Road and turning left and going back to Madingley Road? I mean, that's absolutely nuts. Why would you do that? So it's the first thing you need to know. It's all just backwards.
Yeah. You could ask them also just to confirm that, to actually say, can you confirm that this is not in any of the proposals? As opposed to, so you're asking for, you might get the fudging again, but asking for a full disclosure. But can you ask at these points, this is not? But can you confirm that green is not in any of the proposals? Can you confirm? If you wanted to be more specific.
I think the trouble is, what they're doing is they do set, sorry, Chris, you say.
Unfortunately, I think by doing that you play into their hands, because they deliberately just say, no, we've got no plans. No, we've got no plans. But what's going to happen is they'll build the busway to Grange Road, and then it's like, once they've done that, you've got no choice. You simply cannot get all the buses through, so there will have to be some point at Queen's Road where people change buses. Because some people on those buses coming through from further out want to go in one direction, and other people want to go in another direction. And there has to be some point where they'll change the buses. And that will have to be on Queen's Road.
Well, I asked in one of those bus events, and they pointed very strongly to the city centre detail map, right, which seems to indicate that only if you choose the rugby ground route, it will go to Silver Street, and if you choose Adams Road or Madingley Road, it goes to Madingley Street. And then I pushed them on it, whether they had done any calculations or the impact, especially if a bus, as was discussed, comes down the off-road option every 3 minutes, what that would do to Grange Road or the entire population centre that is there, which is heavily impacted. And they said that they weren't going to look at this at all because it was going to be a commercial decision for the bus provider, because the bus provider will drive the people where they want to go. And we're spending hundreds of millions potentially on a bus route that then is at the mercy of those commercial providers. I think this is completely mad.
Yes, and the government's just bailed out that same commercial provider.
Oh yeah.
And I think we also have on record a response from Andy Campbell, which was in response to your question, which says that he did say that he has concerns about the operational viability of the routes through Grange Road.
Yes.
for mass transit.
Again, in the consultation on the bus, the engineer from, I think, McDonald was saying, in the face of objections to the bus going beyond Grange Road, it needs to stop there now because it probably will never be allowed to go further. Forget Drummer Street, and the real purpose of the busway is to service the West Cambridge site. I mean, I know it's kind of like, are you making this up on the hoof because you're having somebody arguing with you, or is this genuine statement of a position? I heard them repeat that in the Coton Primary School consultation to somebody. I thought, well, I know it's the same person.
And they add that, no, these plans were done by Atkins, and Mott MacDonald are the new consultants and not really bound by what the old consultants did. I think they're running us around the tree.
So, in the last 2 happy years that I've been sitting on the City Deal Assembly, I have said at sort of 3 monthly intervals, what guarantees do we have that there are going to be any buses running on these busways? Now, I don't know if you and there never were any. There's never been any. I mean, I've been told that, I think Graham Hughes said to me once, put the busways there and the buses will come. Now, I put a bird table out and the birds don't come. Exactly. But I don't know if you heard the comment from Chris Tunstall about investigating revenue generating options. So that by any other name is congestion charging, all right? So, that is an acknowledgement that without subsidies, there are not going to be enough buses on these busways. So they know, I think, that without being able to subsidise the buses, these busways will not have enough buses on them to actually have the impact.
Look, I think this is a really important topic that we need to say something about, the Backs and Silver Street. So, what's our best way forward here, do we think?
Isn't the key point that until they can spell out an end-to-end solution from Cambourne to where people want to go, it's impossible to consult on what they're...
This is fine, just take that final paragraph out, because we've covered it already in a separate resolution on the consultation. The rest is fine.
I agree with that. Could I ask, one of the deficiencies in your letter, which you need to emphasise, is that the consultation document has no mention at all about how the Cambourne bus links to the Western Orbital.
Yes.
At the moment, the expectation is that if they build that fancy new bridge for the buses, the only contact will be a vertical distance of 30 feet between Western Orbital going underneath the bridge. So where is the hub for the interconnection? So people coming in from the west can then get onto the bus which goes to the Science Park or Gladdenbrooks or the railway station. That is completely ignored. And it's fundamental because the Western Cambridge Master Plan, which is now currently before the planners, does not include any land allowance for an access or an approach to a new bridge or a hub for any form of intersection between the two new bus routes. And it's until we know where this hub is going and how this intersection, it's almost impossible to determine what the route is.
And also the Western Orbital is on hold anyway, isn't it?
The Western Orbital has been kicked into the long grass.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been kicked into the long grass. They're not going to do anything on it until 2019. Which is when highways will be determining whether or not they're going to build a smart motorway.
Exactly. Yes, because it's all backwards. Not only is the final mile into the city, but actually, the crucial thing you would ordinarily sort first is how you're going to get from that to Addenbrooks. But the reality is that if an offline scheme comes south of the West Cambridge site, you've got to probably get off your bus, double back through on another bus, back to Madingley Road, rejoin the traffic and take the slip road.
That's what they said in the public consultation. They said there would be a bus exchange point of some kind on Ada Lovelace Way, and they were going to reopen the old junction onto Madingley Road at the top of that road, and so the guided bus would stop there, passengers would get off, and they would get on the bus and they'd go back up onto Madingley Road, back west, and then down the M11.
So one of our common themes then is that we feel it's being done back to front.
Well, there's also a key economic question. I mean, the reality is that the Cambridge News said 7.6 million people visit Cambridge every year, and they generate £500 million of revenue. Okay, not as much as people want, but it's a lot. And that route, Silver Street, is the epicentre of the tourist route. I'm afraid it's like the equivalent of Trafalgar Square, or it's the equivalent of the National Gallery, or whatever it is. It is the very epicentre of what brings people to Cambridge. And the very fact that we're making a decision which will directly impact, a Grade 1 listed capability brown park plan like that. And I'm telling you, and I'm going to say this on oath, that document had a drawn-on bus lane on Queen's Road. And I'm afraid that is shocking. And the reason that they buried it is because the press started to look into it. We had a piece to do with the cobbles. They got very concerned. So I think that it's a very, very important issue. And I think certainly from West Cambridge end, it's a linchpin issue. So.
Okay, well let's vote on that, shall we? All in favour of this resolution taking out the final paragraph? Good. Right. Thank you very much, folks. We will go away and look at all this and draw something up.
Thank you very much.